Good afternoon. My name is Ed Sachs, and I am president of my collaborative team. Welcome to this special CollaborEAT presentation utilizing hope and empathy. On the bottom of the screen, you will see a chat button. If you wish to ask questions, please do so through the chat. If you're having any issues, please post to the chat and our webmaster will respond, or send an email to webmaster@mycollaborativeteam.com. Now, I would like to take just a minute to tell you about my collaborative team. My collaborative team is a not-for-profit corporation. Our mission is to provide marketing and educational opportunities for our members in building more successful collaborative practices utilizing our digital and virtual marketing outlets. The main goal of my collaborative team is to be the leading publisher and producer of collaborative process content and to be a marketing partner for our members. We provide our members the confidence, assistance, and platforms they need to distinguish themselves as collaborative professionals. Our newsletter is distributed to over 13,000 family professionals across North America, including 6,000 collaboratively trained lawyers, mental health professionals, and financial professionals 2 times per week. We invite you to check out our website at www.mycollaborativeteam.com. We hope you'll join us and support what we are doing. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's expert presenters. Dr. Ronda Fuchs is a licensed psychologist, collaborative divorce facilitator, qualified parent coordinator, guardian ad litem, and Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator. Her passion is to help families deal with the emotional stressors accompanying divorce through individual or family therapy during or after divorce, by serving as a neutral facilitator in the collaborative divorce process, and by educating the public about the collaborative process. Dr. Fuchs is a contributor to local and national media outlets and is frequently quoted by the Miami Herald. She's also authored numerous articles on collaborative divorce for local newspapers and widely read websites like My Collaborative Team. She's a member of the American Psychological Association, the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals, the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals, and the Collaborative Family Law Institute of Miami. She graduated with a doctorate in clinical psychology from Nova Southeastern University in 1995, followed by a postdoc fellowship at the University of Miami Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. Known for helping clients reach settlement, Bob Merlin is committed to helping his clients to resolve divorce and other family law issues in the least adversarial ways possible. A Florida Bar Board Certified Family Law Specialist, Bob practices in the areas of divorce, time sharing, child support, alimony, paternity, pre- and postnuptial agreements, and cohabitation agreements. An experienced collaborative attorney, Bob continually hones his skills in the collaborative process and trains other professionals how to become collaborative professionals. Bob has a long history of being involved in community organizations and taking leadership positions. He recently received the President's Award from the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Bob is president-elect of the Florida Academy and currently serves as treasurer of IACP. Rhonda and Bob, take it away.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. During these days of remote learning, I took a great couples therapy course for continuing education, and it occurred to me that the idea of empathy that they utilize, we really could use in the collaborative process. And I also addressed the idea of hope with many of my therapy clients after I learned concepts from Bob Merlin's presentation in an advanced training. So we thought it'd be a timely topic to bring to our collaborative colleagues. As the state of stress has become chronic, and we must try to maintain in hope and empathy, not only with ourselves and with our clients, but for the world. We think we listen, but rarely do. We listen with real understanding, true empathy. Yet listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forces for change that I know. Carl Rogers, a very famous psychologist. Another psychotherapist, Alfred Adler. Empathy is seeing the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling the heart of another. And Mother Teresa, who we all know, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. I'd like to give you a few definitions of empathy. Empathy is the experience of understanding another person's thoughts, feelings, and condition from his or her point of view, rather than from one's own. Empathy facilitates pro-social or helping behaviors that come from within, rather than being forced, so that people actually behave in a more compassionate manner. It's the ability to accurately put yourself in someone else's shoes, to understand the other situation, perceptions, and feelings from their point of view, and to be able to communicate that understanding back to the other person. Empathy is simply the awareness of the feelings and emotions of other people. It's a link between self and others, because it is how we as individuals understand what others are experiencing as if we were feeling it ourselves. There are three specific types of empathy. Cognitive empathy, which is also known as perspective taking. And this is the ability to understand how a person feels by seeing things from their other person's point of view or perspective. Then there's emotional empathy, which is known as affective empathy. And this is the ability to share or feel the feelings of another person. This type of empathy helps you build emotional connections with others. This can be demonstrated when you're watching a movie or TV show and you see an actor being very emotional, very sad, and all of a sudden you really feel that. That's emotional empathy. It's important, though, that too much emotional empathy can be debilitating for the professionals. We can't be overwhelmed by clients' negative or heavy emotions. We have to be able to work effectively. So it's really important to balance empathy, emotional empathy. And finally, there's compassionate empathy, also known as empathic concern. This goes beyond simply understanding and feeling. It actually moves us to take action, to help however we can. And I think most recently, we've seen this in the protesters with Black Lives Matters. So how do we use this to build empathy in the collaborative process? So first, we have cognitive empathy. We want to imagine, what is the client going through? Who wanted the divorce? What are their fears and anxieties? How will their life change? What is each client's perspective on their marriage and the end of the marriage? And then we want to think about emotional empathy. So not only understanding their feelings, but somehow sharing their feelings. Try to connect with something. It may be your own divorce, your parents' divorce, or any trauma or death that has turned your world upside down, as our clients are now feeling. And finally, compassionate empathy moves us to take action. And this is when we start the work in the collaborative process. So by having empathy, every interaction you share with another person or client is a chance to see things from a different perspective, to share feelings, and to help. How do we build empathy? It's not necessary to share the same experience or circumstances as others to feel and display empathy. It's almost impossible. Your own experience may help, but it's not necessary. Empathy is an attempt to better understand the other person by getting to know their perspective. So you all remember the golden rule: do unto others as you want to be done unto. I like to think of the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they want to be done unto. And we can only do that by trying to really understand them. Build empathy by sharing what the other person wants and needs, not by your own agenda. Be mindful of your own bias, build rapport, act more interested, engage more with them, ask more questions, show your clients you'll go the extra mile. And build empathy by listening. I think we need the next slide. Effective listening requires hearing what the person is saying and also what they're not saying. You can paraphrase or reflect back to them to be sure you understand what they're communicating. Nonverbal communication also demonstrates empathy. A nod, a touch, well, virtual touch, eye contact allows person to feel you are trying to really understand them. Sometimes the opposite would be the eye rolling in a meeting. That is really lacking empathy. Stay tuned into the clients. I always check in with my clients before meetings, or if it's an extended time between meetings. Realize that the way they think and feel about their divorce, it could vary from day to day, but they have a lot of variables happening in their lives and things change for them. So under emotional stress, you may behave very differently than you think you would. So try to perceive a client's stress with that in mind. We also want to be careful what can limit empathy. Adding your own judgment or advice about a similar situation that may be incorrect. No two divorces are the same. If we have unconscious bias, if we're interrupting a lot, giving silver linings. I think silver linings are a nice thing in therapy, but I think sometimes you're not necessarily empathizing with what somebody's going through if you're saying, oh, but this can happen in the next chapter. Thinking that you have the whole picture. At any given time, a person is dealing with many factors that we are unaware. And I always say each client knows each other better than the team will ever. Accommodation, desensitization may also decrease empathy because we're so used to people getting divorced. I mean, sometimes even at weddings, we may be thinking, oh, how will this end? But we need to balance accommodation and empathy so that we're not overwhelmed and debilitated and we can work effectively. What are some of the benefits of empathy? Their clients will feel more understood and more supported. It strengthens our professional team, can improve relationships with colleagues and clients. We feel more connected to others, and it may increase referrals because their experience of having an empathic team may be better than experience of a team that's not quite empathic. So how do we build cognitive empathy in a collaborative process? Well, first is the initial meeting with the clients. As a facilitator, I have the chance to learn about each client's perspective about their marriage and what led to their divorce. The value in seeing them individually allows them to be candid and not censor. So the facilitator begins to understand what and why they're perceiving situations in a certain way. For example, in the case of infidelity, each client has a very specific perspective of why it happened. Then we have a pre-brief team call. The facilitator is able to give both perspectives to the team. I think this is really important because as the attorney, you only know one of the clients, and now you have a chance to hear the whole story or both perspectives, and neither perspective is wrong. It's just their perspectives. The facilitator needs to communicate that information in an empathic, not judgmental way. I ask my teams to keep information confidential so I don't have to censor myself. I want them to know all that I can give them to understand the dynamics of this couple. And then the team has the opportunity to hear both perspectives and can empathize with both clients. In a debrief, we continue to build cognitive empathy by giving and receiving feedback. Doing so helps us better understand our team's personalities and thoughts, and also how our communications are met by our team and understood by our team. So now we want to build emotional empathy. The goal of emotional empathy is to actually share the feelings of the other person, leading to a deeper connection. When the clients tell you about their personal struggles or challenges, listen carefully. Don't judge them or their situation. Don't interrupt them. Don't share your personal experience, or don't propose solutions. Just listen and focus on understanding how they feel and why they feel that way. And then take time to reflect. Once you have a better understanding how they feel, you have to find a way to relate. When have I felt similar to what this person has described? We've all had traumas and challenges and difficulties in our lives, so we can probably pull something. You'll never be able to imagine exactly how the clients feel, but trying will get you a lot closer than it would have otherwise. And now we want to get to compassionate empathy. I think we missed a slide. Well, once you find a way, we'll get there. Once you find a way to connect with their feelings and have a more complete picture of the situation, you're ready to move into action and have compassionate empathy. And that's where the collaborative process begins. Working collaboratively already lends itself to having compassionate empathy. The fact that we want to help people through a painful life transition in the most supportive and positive way is a real sign of empathy. So I must have skipped that slide, but here we are in empathy in the relationships of the collaborative team. Let's talk about the empathy between clients. In that initial meeting, I ask each client how empathic they are to their spouse, if at all. We have clients that will say They want to take care of the other spouse. They want them to be okay. And we have other clients that don't have empathy and say they can't understand why they just can't move on and make decisions. We want to know if there was interpersonal violence in the marriage. A perpetrator will most likely not have a high level of empathy. We want to know if a spouse is narcissistic. I hear this diagnosis 75% of my cases, my collaborative cases. A spouse reads a book or their therapist says their spouse is narcissist. Maybe it's a correct diagnosis, or maybe just traits that he or she has, or maybe just the way the spouse feels about the other spouse. But either way, narcissistic people lack empathy or have very little. So we have to be aware. We want to try to have clients empathize with each other to have a better understanding of what the other's feeling or experiencing. Even have them express what they understood. This is really hard for them because there's a lot of anger and resentment, and they're not really wanting to empathize. We can help them as a team. Even when we're looking at interest-based negotiations, does each spouse really understand why the other has that interest? And then we want clients to compassionately listen to each other. They usually have a different perspective on their marriage. They want their version to be the correct version. Both perspectives are valid. Help them hear each other. And then the possibility of a genuine apology, and I mean genuine. This demonstrates empathy and goes a long way. Now, in professionals, having empathy towards the clients, there are important things to consider. Know where they are in the grief process and why they're acting a certain way. We know the stages of grief: shock, denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and acceptance. They don't move at the same pace. The person that wanted the divorce, they already are moving through the grief process. And then the other client finds out and they're starting the grief process. We need to keep an eye on that. With infidelity, don't judge it. Don't judge either spouse. Remember, each has their perspective in their marriage. It's important to determine, though, if the person that's been cheated on has post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very typical with infidelity. Know if the client is flooded. It's like the fight, flight, or freeze, a physiological reaction to increased stress. They can't think, hear, communicate when that's happening. They can't make decisions. We need to slow it down. We need to take a time out, or even need to stop the meeting. If somebody's on the spectrum, they're going to have a different way of processing. Becky Fisher gave a great lecture on this topic, and it's really important to know and have empathy for that type of processor. If there's domestic violence, interpersonal violence, understand the level of fear the victim is under. And again, don't blame either person. If there's substance abuse, both clients are suffering. They may still even be in love. I have one client that said he needed to divorce the disease. It's very painful for people. We need to have empathy for them. I think one of the hardest things for people, for clients in the collaborative divorce, is revealing everything to a team of professionals. Their finances, their parenting, their infidelities, their everything. And I think we need to have a lot of empathy for that. That's not easy. And they're going through a very painful process. That we don't always understand why they don't want to let go of material things. Art, we say, well, you can't afford the marital home. Why do you want to keep it? We have to have empathy for that. Empathy if there's a new relationship for one of the spouses. And for the other client, even if you don't like him or her. In this time, now we have COVID, and it's so important because the anxiety of people is off the charts. They sometimes have to live in the same house. They're anxious about time sharing. They can't even imagine a new single life because they can't go out and have it. So there's a lot of emotional fatigue. People are not being totally rational. We need to think about that. I think sometimes what shows a lack of empathy is, and not intentionally, but I think sometimes as a team, we may joke, we may have sidebars, and even being very passionate about the collaborative process. I used to say that in my intro, and I realized these people are in so much pain, going through one of the worst experiences of their lives. We need to stay tuned into what they're going through and how they're feeling. It's our job, but it's their lives. So we don't want to become desensitized. And then finally, empathy between professionals. Level of experience varies. So for the newer collaborative professional, we want to be empathic. It's not easy work. I find it very challenging. Have empathy for the attorney who has the difficult client, or for both attorneys who have both difficult clients. The empathy of the attorney that's trying to shift from litigator to peacemaker, this is really difficult. And I remember speaking to attorneys on a team exactly about this, because I could feel their challenge, their obstacle to doing this, and they were actually doing a great job. But I think it's important to recognize and empathize. Have team members have empathy for both clients, sometimes pick sides, and we don't want to do that in collaborative. And having empathy and demonstrating it is modeling the positive behaviors that we want to give to our clients. So I'm going to give it over to Bob to talk about hope, and we'll get to questions at the end.
That's great, Rhonda. That was excellent. I love talking about these concepts of empathy and hope. I think it's critical to what we do as collaborative professionals. It's so important that on my website, the first thing someone reads, other than my name, is a quote from me. My goal is to help my client get to a better place than where she or he was when they first came to meet me. I want every one of my clients to come into my office and think about tomorrow being a better day. Tomorrow may not physically or actually be 24 hours later, but at some time in the future, they're going to be okay. And I am constantly talking to my clients about there being a better tomorrow, and they will be okay. This concept of hope actually is very involved. You have in front of you a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." Hope doesn't mean having unrealistic expectations, but it's okay to accept the circumstances and have hope that things will get better. Next slide, please. Richard DeVos said, "Few things in the world are more powerful than a positive push, a smile, a world of optimism and hope, a you can do it when things are tough type of attitude." I'm really finding myself smiling at strangers now since COVID. It has affected me, and I want other people to have a positive attitude and to feel that there's something good going on around them, and that's part of hope. There was a study at the University of Texas in the 1990s involving 800 people ages 64 to 79. And this was a survey on depression. As of 1999, 29% of the hopeless people died. Only 11% of the hopeful people died. This is the power of having hope. It can actually physically and mentally affect you, have a better attitude, and help you heal when things are wrong. Eric? And this is about biochemistry and hope. It has significant effects on fundamental physiological processes such as respiration, circulation, and motor function. With neurochemistry, there's a belief in positive expectation that can block pain, actually block pain with the feeling of hope by releasing endorphins and enkephalins, which mimic the effect of morphine on the body. This is more on the neurochemistry of hope. By the way, I was just reading this past week about a guy named Kendrick Norton, who was a football player at the University of Miami and then was on the Dolphins. He got in an automobile accident and part of his arm was severed. He'll never play football again. Instead of him coming out of the hospital with a negative attitude, he had an attitude of hope. And so he didn't want people to have pity on him. In fact, he didn't even want people to have a negative attitude toward him when they came to visit him. He sent his sister out of the hospital room because she was crying, and he wanted her to gather her wits about her. He's come out, and his goal is to help other people. And that is giving hope to other people. Here's a person who suffered a significant loss. His entire life is going to be different, at least in theory. He's going out fishing with one arm, and he wants to try and do all sorts of things, playing golf with one arm. That's an example of hope and what we can help our clients gain and focus on in the collaborative process. Let's move on to let me just refer to the last one. And this is something I made reference to before. We're not talking about false hope. And as Jerome Groopman said, false hope does not recognize the risks and dangers that true hope does. False hope can lead to intemperate choices and flawed decision-making. We're not talking about that. We're talking about helping our clients and ourselves and the professionals around us have reasonable expectations. True hope takes into account the real threats that exist and seeks to navigate the best path around them. Our clients come to us with all sorts of, sometimes, and maybe too often, false ideas of what the threat is in the family. I really have talked a lot in, I don't know, the last 6 months or so about the fear that our clients have. Understand the fear that the clients have and fears that we have. We may have a fear that we're not going to be able to help these clients resolve their differences. But understand the fears and try and overcome the fears. And one of the ways to do that is to have hope. Next slide. These are more about the physiological effects of hope. And another quote from Jerome Groopman: hope then is constructed not just from rational deliberation, from the conscious weighing of information that arises as an amalgam of thought and feeling, the feelings created in part by neutral input from the organs and tissues. We, as collaborative professionals, can help our clients have these positive and realistic feelings, and especially the neutrals can do that in the collaborative process. There is no other process around where you can have someone such as Ronda sitting at the table to help a couple resolve their parenting and relationship issues. The typical model is going into court, fighting, and attorneys having a I want to win attitude instead of focusing on what is in the best interest of this family. That's giving the entire family hope, and giving hope to each parent that their kids are going to be okay as well. Next slide, please. Hope structures your life in anticipation of the future. Hope is a sort of a thinking now about the future. It influences how you feel now and how you're going to feel in the future. It creates a positive mood about an expectation, a goal, or a future situation. It can alter how you currently view yourself. I try to do that with my clients. I want them to think differently about themselves. I've had so many clients come to me in tears, men and women, thinking that the world is ending. And it doesn't have to be like that. I feel that it's up to me and the other professionals to boost up the clients and help them have this hope so that they will be better in the near future. Next. So I wanted to talk about this concept of hope and being peacemakers. I describe myself more and more as a peacemaker and a purveyor of hope. In fact, I and a number of other professionals 2 years ago put on a training in Tampa on peacemaking. And this concept of hope is an integral part of what peacemakers do. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are all peacemakers. We are all helping families come to peace, pursue peace instead of pursuing conflict. Next. This is from my friend Woody Mostyn. Woody is the creator of the Unbundled Legal Services, which is what the collaborative process is, a world-renowned mediator and collaborative professional. Woody said, peacemaking is a broader commitment than simply trying to avoid litigation or hammer out a settlement. It is the search for ways to improve the lives of the people we work with, help to repair their relationships, and encourage them to prevent future conflict. We as collaborative professionals have the opportunity, and it's a blessing, to be able to work with a family and help their tomorrow be better than it was in the past. Unlike especially the litigators, and I used to be a litigator, the goal was not either to win or not to lose, and there was no focus years ago on the well-being of the family, especially the children. Go out, destroy the other side, and I still believe that most family attorneys don't pay attention to the effect on the children. If they did, they would not participate in the process they're involved in. The mere delay in having resolution, which is what happens historically in courts and is even worse now all over, is not in the best interest of children. So we have an opportunity to change the way people see divorce and how we treat each other. Next. Be a purveyor of hope. Napoleon is credited with describing leaders as dealers in hope. If you think about it, a good leader, without getting into current politics, is one who creates hope in an organization, in a governmental body, or even in a collaborative group of professionals and with the clients. Alfred Tennyson said, hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, it will be happier. Theodore Roosevelt said, when you're at the end of your rope, you don't give up. Tie a knot and hold on. Helen Keller said, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. I want my clients to have confidence in their future. I also want my clients to have confidence and hope in me. And so the way I talk to my clients, the way I look at them, sometimes going out of my way to avoid being frustrated with them, to calm them down. But that's all part of their perception of me, the process, and what their future is going to be. As Indira Gandhi said, you cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. So in fact, on my website, I have a photograph of one of my assistants and I shaking hands right on the front page of my website. Next. So what do we sell as peacemakers? We sell hope, resolution, fairness, forgiveness. Rhonda's point about forgiveness was a meaningful forgiveness is a really great point. When I'm fortunate enough to be in a collaborative matter where there is true forgiveness, it's a moving experience and it can change everybody in that room forever. We sell better relationships. Just because there is a lack of trust and hurt feelings, tears, does not mean that that's the way it has to be in the future. Maybe you're not going to trust your spouse in the future, but life can be better, and we help our clients to focus on their children. If you have one parent not trusting, disliking, making faces about or comments about the other parent, we know it's going to affect the child. That is not instilling hope in the children. As I tell my clients, you, the dear parent, have to instill hope in your children because they need to know that they're going to be okay. When I talk to my clients about talking to their children about the divorce, I talk to them about making sure everything is calm as it can be, telling the children that they love them and they are going to be okay. That is passing on this message to our clients of instilling hope in those around us. Empowerment. Go back, please. I have a lot of clients who come to me and they just don't know what they're going to do with their future. I had one collaborative matter where I thought my client was brilliant, but she wasn't working. She was 100% dependent upon her husband for financial support and really emotional support. She had a child in the 2nd grade. I told her at some point in time, your child is going to be older and is going to want to go in other directions, not be home with mommy, and you're brilliant. I encouraged her to go become a college professor. I don't know if that happened, but I was instilling hope in her. We sell prevention. We want to make sure that our clients are not going to make the same mistakes they've made before and move on in a better way. And I can't say it enough, we instill hope in them. Next. So here's some of the benefits of providing peacemaking services to our clients. We provide hope to our clients for a better tomorrow. We empower the client. We reduce stress in the client's life. We can't guarantee any of these things, but we certainly can work hard toward those goals. We reduce damage to children, for sure. We teach a client how to live a better life. We teach them how to teach their children to live a better life. We teach clients how to resolve differences peacefully. We demonstrate, and one of the benefits and beauties of having the facilitator or mental health professional or coach sitting at the table is that we demonstrate for the couple how to resolve their differences. And every time I'm in the first collaborative meeting or whenever it may be, and the clients come to an agreement, I congratulate them about coming to their first agreement. And it should be noticed and promoted and let them know this is not the last time. You're going to have a lot of other agreements in the future. We teach clients how to save money. I want my clients to be prudent about how they're going to live tomorrow as opposed to how they lived yesterday. In the typical family, if you're getting divorced, there is going to be a financial impact on both of the parties. And so I want both of them to be more prudent in how they're spending their money, at least be aware of it. And we expedite the dispute resolution process. I have clients who complain about how long the collaborative process takes. They should only know how long it's taking in court now. I was on an MCT telephone conference a few weeks ago, and it was a different program. I was on a program with a litigator and a mental health professional, and the litigator, who's from New York, talked about how he was getting trials scheduled for next fall. That's no way to handle a family dispute or a dissolution of marriage. In the collaborative process, we can move much faster than that. Next. It's very important that we not do things that conflict with our core values and personal attributes. I did not feel comfortable continuing to litigate, and the collaborative process resonated with me. I certainly went to a lot of programs to gain better skills, and I continue to do that because I can always become a better professional. That is instilling hope in me that I can be better tomorrow. I'm very proud of what I do as a collaborative professional. I put up with a lot of opposition in various areas, but the reality is that more and more professionals are using the collaborative process, and more clients are seeking out collaborative professionals. People contact me and come into my office asking for the collaborative process because it's all over my website. I introduce myself as a collaborative professional. I don't want a client coming into my office asking for a pit bull. I'm not that person. Go seek someone else. We do not compromise ourselves merely for the dollar. We are ethical. We emphasize being ethical conduct. I had a collaborative attorney call me a couple of hours ago and ask me a question about what would be the ethical thing to do in a particular circumstance. we think about our long-term reputation. I am absolutely okay with someone not describing me as a pit bull, and I want someone to describe me as a peacemaker. We increase the likelihood of being paid for our services. We know, and I know from conversations with people, attorneys around the world, that in the collaborative process, we may not bill as much as a litigator, but the percentage of our billable hours that actually get paid is much higher than in litigation. We don't have to spend time chasing our clients, filing suit against them, dealing with potential bar complaints that are filed against us. We increase the likelihood of other professionals referring business to us because we're not necessarily conflicting with them. So I have a relationship with some litigators. I may send some business to them. I have one who's is trying to use me as a mediator in one of his family matters. Think of the benefits that we can bring to others, and we are a trendsetter. Even though the collaborative process was created in 1990 by Stu Webb, we're still in the infant stages of it. And those of us who have been doing this for a while really get enthusiastic about bringing new people in. Ronda was telling us before we got on this webinar about an attorney who got trained a number of years ago, a well-known litigator down here, and she's doing a great job in her first collaborative matter. That is something that's wonderful to hear. Next. And this is about developing a profitable peacemaking practice. Identify your core values and key personal attributes and follow those. If you walk the walk and talk the talk, your clients and other people around you are going to understand that. When I talk about myself and my business practices, I sell myself as a peacemaker. I don't want people to think of me as a litigator, as a fighter. And so people want to refer clients, people they know, to me because they know that I'm going to take good care of them. If you think about it, who is a mental health professional going to refer a client to? Someone who's going to be destructive in the relationship in the family, or someone who's going to bring peace to the family? Identify the image that you want to portray to the public. Have that all over your website. Sell the concept of hope and peacemaking on your website, on your business card, how you introduce yourself. Create a plan to communicate your image to the public. Make a commitment to live up to your image. You may have to say no because you're not going to get involved in certain situations. That's okay. And maybe you're taking on collaborative pro bono matters because that's a good thing and good for your image and self-respect as well. Go back, please. Almost finished. Identify the services that you want to provide and be consistent, that are consistent with your core values. Have the guts to decline business. And I said provide pro bono services. Next. I firmly believe that as a peacemaker, I am getting more business. Other professionals will see me as no longer being a competitor. Corporate attorneys, estate planning attorneys, real estate attorneys will want to send their clients to me. They know that I'm not going to do the corporate real estate and estate planning business. So I'm not taking business from them. I'm just going to take good care of their clients. Clients seem to appreciate the congruence of walking the walk and talking the talk. And I want to differentiate myself from other professionals. And I want others who are listening on this call and may listen later to do what we do. Stand up and be a collaborative professional and be proud of it. And I'm free to concentrate on doing what I enjoy, doing it better than ever. Next. So here's some peacemaking, negotiating tips. I'm not going to go through all of them. Certainly never threatening. Don't put pressure on other people. No preconditions to negotiations. Give the clients reason to trust your judgment. In the first collaborative meeting, I address the other client and I say to the client, I am never going to raise my voice to you. I will always talk to you respectfully. I understand what you're going through. I am here not as your enemy and not to go after you. I, with the other professionals, are going to help you and your spouse determine your futures and the futures of your children. We will work together to help you. And the other client appreciates that. I've been in collaborative meetings at the end after the signing of the agreement where I represented the husband and the wife on the other side gave me a kiss, thanking me for helping this process work so smoothly. I love working with the interdisciplinary team, even though there's not a legal requirement to use a facilitator or a mental health professional or coach. I won't use the collaborative process without one. The collaborative process is another tool in your toolbox. Everything in my toolbox is focused on peacemaking and hope. Next. So how do we communicate hope to everyone around us? We normalize the situation for the client. We understand what the clients are going through. Listen to the clients. There was an attorney, there was someone who came to me a number of years ago who said that she'd gone to a well-known litigator here in Miami who told her she didn't want to know about her problems, talk to her therapist. I don't know how a family attorney can be effective without having empathy and understanding about what the client is going through, which is exactly what Rhonda talked about. Acknowledge the client's fears and thinking. Don't tell them they're crazy. Say, I understand, and have that empathy and create hope in them so that they will do better. Discuss what the client can do to create the best possible future. Talk about what the client's goals are. I have a form that I give my clients. I ask them what they want to accomplish in the collaborative process. Help the client understand his or her dreams. Give the client an opportunity to grieve. This is a process, and it's related to what Rhonda said as well. Give the client confidence. That's definitely an integral part of hope. Encourage the client to pursue dreams. Be realistic, but positive. Encourage clients to take action to pursue hope. The client must be active, not passive. Next. Don't sell the client a bill of goods. Your clients are going to know if you're not being truthful with them, or you're just trying to sell the bill of goods. Use other experts to help the client. There's no problem with bringing in another expert in a particular area to help the client understand what's going to be done. I have a collaborative matter now where there are very, very complicated financial issues, and we may bring in a specialist in this from out of town. Refer the client to experts and coaches. I'm constantly referring clients to therapists for their own well-being. Encourage the client to help, to contact me anytime they want to. How can I help you? And that's part of instilling hope in the client. I'm here to help you, my client. How can I do that? Contact me, communicate with me. Encourage clients, people, the advisors, to encourage hope for the client. Their advisors, their family members. Sometimes you're not going to be in contact with them, but sometimes you will. Help the client focus on the positives in their life and help them focus on hope for the benefit of their children. Next. So this is the bottom line for my part of this presentation. Normalization for the client, assurances for the future, talk in hopeful terms, and be realistic, but emphasize the positive. That's it. Thank you. Questions?
Bob and Rhonda, thank you very much. We do have a question or comment. Mark from Connecticut, our friend, he said it would be useful to hear about self-empathy and self-care tips that help us to be better at empathizing with others. Rhonda?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, self-empathy, because I think more of self-preservation, because self-empathy is about thinking how somebody else's perspective, how they feel in a different situation. But when it comes to yourself, I always tell clients, you know, you see in the airplanes, a flight attendant says, put the oxygen mask on you first, because if you don't do that, you can't help anybody else. And so we need to preserve ourselves. That's why we can't get too pulled down by that emotional empathy where we're feeling, you know, so devastated by somebody's challenges that we can't work effectively. So I think it's self-preservation, doing things that are healthy, exercise, meditation, good relationships, all those things, and going in with trying to understand somebody's feelings and situation, perspective, but not getting drawn down to it.
Mark, I think that's a really interesting question because sometimes we don't pay close enough attention to ourselves. Sometimes we go into collaborative meetings when we've just left something that we're working on or something else is on our mind. It really benefits us individually to take some time, a break before you go into a collaborative meeting where you're going to have a difficult conversation with someone so that you can be completely focused and not distracted. That's sort of focusing on yourself. I don't know if it's self-empathy, but it's getting yourself in a better position. Although I can't say that I necessarily meditate. I try to take some time out, take a breath, think about things, especially when I'm on the golf course. Certainly doing whatever works for you to calm down, understand yourself. We certainly have to understand our triggers. I knew a collaborative attorney who really did not do well with, and this was a female, who did not do well with women who didn't work. She just didn't relate to them. And it was important for that person to understand that that was a trigger for her.
You know, Bob, one of the things I like to do or like to think about is, you know, the pre-brief before a team meeting isn't always just talking about the clients. Sometimes that's a point where you can use those moments to discuss how we as professionals need to deal with empathizing with the clients once they come on. Sharon has shared that self-empathy also means to recognize when we are getting triggered by what someone else said or did. And that's part of what I was talking about here and being mindful of that.
Yeah, Ed, what you just said is really interesting because I think we've had collaborative meetings where I came into a meeting and shared something that was stressing me out, and others have done that as well. Sometimes you need that. I sort of insist, I can't control, but I really want to have those pre-briefs and debriefs. And debriefs are important too because there are things that some people didn't see and we can react to them and we can talk about them. How can we be a better professional? That's what all this is about. So much of the collaborative process is about being a better professional. The vast majority of attorneys in Florida take CLE courses because they really have to, but it doesn't matter what it is. So I've heard of attorneys just going to the bar site and downloading any random video just to get the credits. In the collaborative process, we're more about really working hard to understand what all three of the disciplines do, how we can be better professionals, how we can do better with our clients and better with each other. That, to me, that resonates with me, and I love being a part of that.
And Jeff Wasserman shares that his positive message to his clients is always, there's life after divorce. No question about that. But the key I would say to that is through the collaborative process, there might be a little bit better of a life after divorce than through litigation. I wanted to share two other things really from points that you raised, Bob, real quick before we conclude. You talked about the speed of collaborative or the slowness of litigation. Ronda and I just had the good fortune of completing a collaborative case, all during COVID, all on Zoom. Our first team meeting was May 7th. Our final team meeting in which we reached settlement was July 7th, exactly 2 months. And in the process, these people had 3 children, and in the process, they sold their home and moved out. That's the only thing really that held us for 2 months. Otherwise, we could have settled in. And this was also a case in which, in the last meeting, there were apologies made, and it was very, very moving, very moving. And the last thing I want to share, you talk about deciding to go do collaborative, deciding to, when to say no. I just recently had one of my most satisfying emails I've ever written. I was involved in a case strictly to try to get the case settled. I was brought in solely for that purpose. And unfortunately, we couldn't get to settlement. So it looks like so the attorney I was working for got fired, and a heavy litigator was hired. And when I informed him that to move forward even towards mediation, I would need another retainer, the response from the attorney was, well, you had a good retainer, you've gone through it, now you need to work for the client and wait for your fee hearing to get paid. It was the most satisfying email to be able to write back and say, no, I don't work that way anymore. Either get me a big retainer, or I'm done, because I won't work for free anymore.
One of the experiences I've had is that attorneys, litigators, are afraid of the collaborative process. They don't know what it's all about. And I think that they fear that they don't have the skills to help their clients resolve everything outside of court. I've actually heard of attorneys whose attitude is that I'm not going to help make that decision. I'm going to give it to the judge to make the decision, and all the responsibility is on the judge, and therefore there's none on my shoulders. That's not what we do in the collaborative process. We take responsibility, but we work together to help the clients have hope for the future. And I just love that Rhonda talked about empathy, because that's such a critical part of what we all do.
Well, I want to thank both Rhonda and Bob. Probably the best comment I'll share, which is on instead of my own, is from Jeff Wasserman. Excellent presentation by both super professionals.
Thank you, Jeff.
To both of you, I thank you. It was a great presentation. We thank everybody for joining us. We invite you to join us on Fridays at our happy hour, 4:30 every Friday, 4:30 Eastern time. We're there till about 6:15. We have lots of fun and we learn lots. Our next CollaborEAT will be on Wednesday, July 29th at noon Eastern. Our topic is going to be how to convert that initial consult into a collaborative case. So we hope you join us. Check out our website, mycollaborativeteam.com. Everyone have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Thank you.